what's up everyone? TJ here. We're back out in California for the week riding Snow Summit and Bear Mountain, and I've partnered up with Snowboard Magazine to do some freestyle board tests this week. So today we're checking out the Salomon Abstract. This is a new board for the 22-23 season on the Salomon lineup. And in this video, I'm gonna go through all the tech and I'll share my thoughts on how it feels out on snow. Let's check it out. All right guys, for reference, before we get into the tech, I weigh around 150 pounds, I'm 5'10", and we're riding the Abstract 155 here today. So this is gonna be a freestyle focused board on the Salomon lineup, artwork by Desiree Melancon. It's a true twin and it runs their ROCKOUT camber profile. So it is camber dominant, and the way Salomon does this is with a long flat section kind of between the feet here, and then heavy camber zones right underfoot. So it creates that overall camber dominant shape, gives you that camber dominant feel, more precise, more poppy, more energetic, a little bit more stable control as well. But then you get a rocker release as you get closer to those contact points to help mellow it out, give you a little bit easier turn initiation and make it a little bit more catch free. You're also gonna find what Salomon calls their ghost carbon beams. So that's a couple of carbon stringers out on the tips here to help give the board a little bit more energy, more snap and more pop, as well as their royal rubber rails. So that's a little rubber layer here built into the sidewall, and it runs a pretty good length of the board, right about the middle of the tail out to the middle of the nose. So almost the whole edge there. And that's just gonna help to dampen things out a little bit and help absorb those harder hits while you're on edge. You're gonna get a triax fiberglass layup in this snowboard. So that's 3 directions of fiberglass with the way they constructed it. It's gonna give it a little bit more response torsionally and just overall make the board a little bit burlier. And other than that, you're gonna get a sintered base in this board. So that's known to be a harder, faster, more durable base material compared to an extruded base. You do wanna make sure to wax it regularly to keep it fast out there. And it also has Salomon's medium stone ground finish. So it does have a little bit of structure in the base. It's gonna help make things a little bit faster, and it's just a nice bonus to help improve that glide. So that's gonna be the quick breakdown of the tech out here. We're gonna keep these laps going, and we'll check back in later to give some more feedback on how this feels out on snow. All right, let's start off talking about the flex. For the Abstract, I'd say it's pretty close to a mid flex, but just a little bit on the softer side of medium. It's a fun all-around park flex, and it is pressable. So if you're into those butter type flat ground tricks and you're trying to get those taller presses out of this snowboard, it's definitely possible. You might have to work a little bit harder against that positive camber profile and some of the additives you're gonna find in this snowboard. But the biggest thing I'd say is just pay attention to your edges. That rocker release does help make it a little less catchy, but that's more when you're flat base. When you're leaned into the nose and tail, you are gonna wanna be paying attention to your edge control, making sure you're not clipping up. Another thing that I think is fun for that type of stuff is the pop and the energy you're gonna find in this snowboard. Like I mentioned earlier, there's carbon built into both the nose and the tail, a pretty significant amount of carbon. And when you load up that tension, it does snap back pretty well. It has some nice pop to it. If you're trying to get this board in the air, it's gonna give you some extra boost. It's gonna have a good feel on the exit of those flat ground tricks as well. I also want to talk about the carving experience on the Abstract. And this board is definitely going to shine the most in the park and doing more freestyle focused stuff. But if you do want to take it out for some all mountain exploring from time to time, it is going to hold up to that pretty well. It's fairly narrow, coming in at a 25.2 centimeter waist on the 155. So it's not going to be very conducive to like Euro carves with those more aggressive edge angles. You might start to find some heel and toe drag if you start doing that kind of stuff. But it does run a slightly above average side cut, coming in around 7.8 meters. So it maintains a pretty comfortable feel even as you get it up to higher speeds. The triax fiberglass layup helps up as well, stiffening the board up a little bit torsionally. I'd say it matches the tip to tail flex pretty well, but if you do find yourself in some choppy or snow conditions, it's gonna help prevent the board from getting bucked around. And this is definitely not gonna be a carving specialist, but it's sturdy enough to hold up around the whole resort. The royal rubber rails I mentioned earlier are going to help iron out chatter as you're out there exploring as well. But I will say, if you start to really push this board, get it up to those higher speeds and do more like all mountain free ride kind of riding, you're going to find the limits of this snowboard and you might start to find some chatter in the tips. But I think the rubber rails built into the sidewall are going to offer the biggest benefit for those harder hits in the park. And as far as park laps go, I think the Abstract is a great all-arounder. It's soft enough and pressable enough to work on more technical tricks if you're more of a jib-focused rider, but still gonna hold it down on the jumps, although this is a board that I wouldn't recommend for the biggest features in the park necessarily. I think that's another place where you can find the limits of this snowboard if you start hitting big gap on rail features and really just start getting into like higher impact scenarios on the larger jumps. But I'd say for the vast majority of riders, this is gonna hold up pretty well and just have a nice, comfortable, all-around park feel. Overall, the Abstract is a nice, well-rounded park board that's going to be a good choice for freestyle progression and just all-around park laps, while still being versatile enough to explore the rest of the resort as well. And while this board does fall slightly on the more playful side of the spectrum, I'd recommend it to more intermediate and up riders that are looking for a freestyle approach to their riding. So if you're looking for something like that, consider the Salomon Abstract. I'm going to have this board linked down in the description below if you want to read more about it. Drop a like if you got some value. Subscribe to the channel if you're new here. I appreciate all you guys. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in a new board review next time.